I think the parents' fear comes from your role. That's what they're afraid of.
You see a far more violence on a Tom and Jerry flick than you ever see it on Ozzy Osbourne concert. All I keep saying to myself, why me?
Do you have any pets?
Yes, they're all dead.
Mr. Crowley, what went on in your head? Oh, Mr. Crowley, did you talk to the dead? Your lifestyle to me seems so tragic, and the thrill of it all. You pulled all the people with magic.
Ozzy Osbourne, one of my all-time favorite heavy metal bands, and of course, the Ozman himself. The Ozman cometh. A lot of people nowadays, a lot of stupid metal peckins love to say stupid cucked opinions like that Ozzy Osbourne sucks as a vocalist and he does nothing with the bands he's in. Ozzy is known to write the vocal melodies in pretty much all the bands he's in.
I mean, you can play him anything, and he'll sing you a song.
Right. But as far as lyrics and stuff, Daisley wrote them, and Geezer wrote them, and Sabbath, and what have you.
Ozzy could come up with the lyrics as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't get the credit he deserves for
as a writer,
how good he was,
Right.
as a singer, as a frontman for the band.
But he would almost always come up with the catchphrase, with the title of the song, like Bark at the Moon.
You could have the greatest riff in the world, but if it hasn't got a great vocal melody over it, or some decent phrasing with that melody, it's not finished.
You know, a lot of people give him crap in Black Sabbath because he wasn't exactly the most dynamic singer. He did hit a lot of high notes, no one gives him credit for, of course. Tony Iommi, who made the executive decision of getting rid of Ozzy and bringing in Ronnie James Dio, was also a big coke fiend and an erratic drug addict, so what a big hypocrite he was to kick him out. But because of this, Ozzy was at his arguable worst point in his entire life. He pretty much hit rock bottom. He sold the rights of Black Sabbath that he owned for £96,000. So Don Arden, who was Sabbath's manager at the time, signed a deal with Ozzy for a solo career or a band or whatever he wanted, and he sent his daughter Sharon to come knocking on Ozzy's door. She tried to clean him up and get him sober as much as he could get sober, that was. It is Ozzy we're talking about. And try to make a star out of him. Bob Daisley got in contact with Ozzy Osbourne, who was the bass player of Rainbow. They came across Quiet Riot's guitar player, Randy Rhoads. Randy was not having a very good time with Kevin DuBrow and Quiet Riot, so what a good change that was. But funnily enough, Randy actually was not a big fan of Black Sabbath. You know, we're all not perfect. That's pretty much an unforgivable sin. Then they brought in Don Airey, who was known for Deep Purple and Rainbow as a keyboard player. The last addition that we brought in was Uriah Heep's drummer, Lee Kerslake. No one cared at the time, though. This was considered to be a total disaster in the making.
The day I got fired from Sabbath was, at the time, the worst day of my life, but looking back now, it probably was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Big things were punk and disco and the sort of new wave, and a lot of the stuff that we'd been involved with or had been a part of was considered dinosaur by then. We just went in and we played and we did what we loved and what we wanted to do from the heart.
The album and band name was of course supposed to be Blizzard of Oz, but they were going to throw Ozzy Osbourne on the album title as kind of like, you know, throwing him a bone there for promotion-wise. People know, yep, this is Ozzy Osbourne, as if Blizzard of Oz wasn't obvious enough. But the band name became Ozzy Osbourne because it was much bigger than the album title. And what makes this album either really good or not as great to anyone listening is that it has a very raw, rock and roll-y production. And the first two albums were worked on by Max Norman. He was very much getting his feet wet at this time. But no matter what, this is considered a metal classic for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. The whole track listing absolutely knocks you on your ass. I don't know. What an amazing opening track. The bass work on that's very underrated. And obviously Randy's just shredding all over the damn thing. Crazy Train, we all know it. It is Ozzy's most popular song for a reason though. Sure, people want to complain how burnt out they are and whatever. A lot of people assume in this day and age that metal is the emo hardcore scene that kind of came up in the late 90s, early 2000s. The truth of the matter is, every person that walks the face of the earth, whether they're country fans, rap fans, whatever, they actually all love good 80s traditional metal. Songs like Crazy Train, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Scorpion songs. There's a reason why all these anthemic metal songs are loved by everyone and played at stadiums. This, to me, is what represents metal at its most pure. Goodbye to Romance is kind of like a slow melodic ballady type song, but it's not really about leaving a woman or anything like that. It's more so about Ozzy leaving Black Sabbath.
When I was a big Black Sabbath, I didn't never feel worth anything because I couldn't contribute musically. When Randy came along and then I kept humming this melody, and he said, "What's this song? A melody?" I said, "It's a melody of it." He said, "Well, sit down, we'll write it, you know." So hum it to me, and he got the chords on the guitar. And we wrote Goodbye to Romance.
And then there's the infamous song, and one of the best songs on here, the slow Suicide Solution. The title's kind of a play on words of killing yourself by drinking, you know, a solution of alcohol. That's why he says at the beginning of the song, wine is fine, but whiskey's quicker. Suicide is slow with liquor. Now, Ozzy claims the song was about Bon Scott drinking himself to death, but Bob Daisley claims that the song was about Ozzy drinking himself to death.
Wine is fine, but whiskey's quicker. Suicide is slow with liquor.
Two kids later down the road ended up killing themselves, and they didn't just blame the lyrics for making the kids kill themselves, because the Osbournes could have weaseled their way out of that by saying something, you know, that the fact the song is about alcohol. So they tried to go after the fact that there's apparently a backwards message in the song. You know, the slow part in the middle with all the ambience where Ozzy's yelling nonsense.
The additional lyrics and the additional sound was, "Get the gun, get the gun, shoot, 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 shoot."
When you suddenly become a success, that a minority of the people that suddenly start to think, hey, this guy has got to be singing backwards. So they play the record backwards. And they say, what?
Mr. Crowley, arguably Ozzy's greatest song of all time. Incredibly melodic, a very dark song, has Don Airey's infamous keyboard intro, which is just reminds you of Dracula and creepy horror movies, perfect ambience there. But what makes this song so special is Randy Rhoads' guitar solos in it, especially the last one. Ozzy, with the exception of maybe Bark at the Moon, always had a really cool epic song on it that's a little bit longer, a little bit more orchestral. On this one, it's Revelation Mother Earth. There's tons of classical sections of it. It wasn't just Mr. Crowley that was showing off a little bit of what Randy Rhoads could do in the classical sense of it. They would quickly begin to outsell even Sabbath, with albums going multiple times platinum, and the band getting a ton of attention. Crazy Train was absolutely beyond massive after this point. It was just absolute organic popularity, especially with the promotion of the next album, which didn't even really have any big hit singles.
I live for rock and roll. It's like my religion and my law. It's all I live for. People get this desire to see horror. All I'm doing is putting Halloween on the road every night.
This album definitely has better production. Randy was getting a lot more into the classical stuff at this point and truly showing off what he can do. All the solos on here are way more impressive, to the point that after this album, there were so many guitar player magazines that were like, Randy Rhoads, the best guitar player of all time, before he died.
Randy, on behalf of the over 500,000 readers of Guitar Player magazine, I'd like to present you with the 1981 Best New Talent Award. Congratulations.
Give him a kiss, Ozzy.
There's no Crazy Trains, but there is a song on here that probably is the closest to a hit, I guess, which is Flying High Again. A classic song. Ozzy talking about getting high off his ass. Not only was the title track really cool with the classical elements, really good lyrics too, about going insane, very detailed lyrics. They were just trying to put on a horror show for people. The stage sets, especially with this tour, they had like a giant castle with a guillotine. They had a dwarf on stage, which Ozzy infamously referred to him as Ronnie. I wonder who he was referring to about that. The songs in this album are probably the most horror movie-ish ones of them all, especially the song Believer. The song has this creepy ambience to the entire thing, especially with Randy Rhoads' guitar notes. It's also a very dynamic album with some softer moments on there, some more progressive moments even. But to me, the best moments have to be the heavy killer ones like Sado, and my favorite song in the entire album, one of my favorite Ozzy songs, the killer opening track with Randy Rhoads ripping my favorite solo of his on Over the Mountain. Now, many people have argued what the song S-A-T-O, Sado, is supposed to even mean. Many of the fans, including Bob Daisley, have said that the song means sail across the ocean. But interestingly, Ozzy and Sharon claim that the song stands for Sharon Arden, which was her name at the time, and Thelma Osbourne, Ozzy's first wife that not many people talk about because of how much he neglected her. And the chaotic nature of the song actually kind of represents that title even more because of how chaotic Ozzy's life was. Obviously with the drug use and with his love life, basically cheating on his wife with Sharon, who would then quickly fall in love and get married. And after digging her claws into Ozzy, Sharon became both extremely helpful in managing him and ultimately protecting him, but also very toxic to the people around him. With not only Black Sabbath, but Ozzy Osbourne, the band itself, writing disses at her, referring to her as the devil's daughter.
They started pulling me aside after gigs and on the road and that, and saying, let's get rid of Lee, let's get Tommy Aldridge. And I said, why are you trying to fix something that isn't broken? We were supposed to go to America and start the tour just after we finished recording and then mix the album in America. But I got a phone call from Sharon saying, you and Lee are out.
Sharon brought in Tommy Aldridge to play drums and Rudy Sarzo, who pretty much plays in everyone's band for live performances. Then a couple of years down the line, there'd be a slew of lawsuits. But Lee and Bob, especially Bob, are the ones that kind of sue the Osbournes the most.
The main royalties are writing and performance. We had been getting the publishing royalties, that is for the writing.
The Diary of a Madman came out without our credits on it, and they'd credited someone else that was going on the road with them. So there was a lawsuit developed out of that, which was settled in court against Don Arden, who was Sharon's father and the owner of Jet Records.
There wasn't an actual judgment against Don Arden or Jet Records because he waved a white flag. As soon as I found out that Sharon had bought the catalogue from her father in 1983. These royalties that Lee and I were meant to get, that we don't get, where do they go? The Osbournes were getting them after they'd bought the catalogue from her father. So we started suing them over those royalties, and that was in about 1999, I think.
Don Arden was going to help Lee and me fighting the case for our royalties. But when Sharon found out that her father was helping us, I mean, she hadn't spoken to him for something like 18 years or something, all of a sudden she made up with him.
We had an affidavit signed by Don saying that we'd bribed him and offered him money to bear witness when we hadn't.
But after being sued constantly in the 90s by these guys, Sharon, in an absolute bitch move, brought in Mike Borden and Rob Trujillo, who were the members of Ozzy's band at the time, to come in, re-release the first two albums, but with those two playing the rhythm tracks instead of Bob and Lee. Sharon even ended up trying to blame Ozzy for it, saying it was Ozzy's idea, he was pissed. Thank God for the outcry, including from Ozzy, because they quickly rectified that. But back to Diary of a Madman, this is Ozzy's favorite album. It's a very good one. But Ozzy was so out of his mind throughout the whole early 80s that it was, even at this time, starting to become a massive problem when he one time drunkenly fired the entire band and and even assaulted Randy and Rudy because they didn't want to record Black Sabbath covers, which would end up becoming Speak of the Devil. Ozzy pretty much went off the rails.
I got up one morning in San Antonio and got dressed in one of my wife's evening dresses with a bottle of Courvoisier again and took a piss up the Alamo wall and got arrested. And it didn't go down too well, you know, because the Alamo is like a national shrine, and I seem to remember the policeman saying to me, well, what would you do if I was to urinate at Buckingham Palace? And I said, to be truthful with him, mate, I don't give a damn, I don't live there, you know.
And a lot of people don't like to talk about this, but Randy really did not like Ozzy's outbursts like that, or his drunkenness and the fact that he attacked him, so their relationship was never really the same. He was gonna finish out the tour, or plan to, and then pursue classical guitar and maybe come back to Ozzy, but we all know what happened there.
The driver of the bus also had a pilot's license, and we had to stop off at the bus depot to get something for the bus. I think it was a jack or something.
Right.
And it took Randy up to take an aerial shot of the bus, a photograph, and I suppose he was tired from the drive, and he smacked the plane into the bus and blew up into a house.
Wow. And then they brought in Brad Gillis from Night Ranger, who's a really awesome guitar player, and he really fit the band in my opinion. He did the Speak of the Devil live video, as well as he did the Speak of the Devil live album, also known as Talk of the Devil in Europe. This was pretty much just a bunch of Black Sabbath covers done live, or live. They probably recorded them in the studio with live sounds, especially Ozzy's voice. Most of the lineup ended up leaving because they just couldn't take it anymore, especially Brad Gillis. He was just beyond upset with Ozzy and how terribly he treated him. And then they ended up bringing George Lynch to try out for guitars for a little bit. He was in Dokken at the time. Ozzy just did not like him. And they were trying out Jakey Lee, who was Rough Cut's guitar player. And Ozzy just instantly liked him better and said, you have the job, in front of George Lynch. And so with this new lineup of Jakey Lee, who is an awesome guitar player, underrated. In my personal opinion, he may even be my favorite Ozzy Osbourne guitar player. We had Tommy Aldridge, the drum god himself, and Bob Daisley even returned to make one of Ozzy's, if not Ozzy's, greatest solo album of all time.
I'm going to continue because Randy would have liked me to continue, so would Rachel. And I'm not going to stop because you can't kill rock and roll.
The only two real members of the original band were me and Ozzy. That actually turned out a lot better than I was hoping, so, well, nobody knew really how it was going to turn out.
The album cover is one of his best, with Ozzy as the werewolf. In fact, the song itself is amazing as well, one of Ozzy's classics. It's pretty much a Halloween soundtrack mainstay, but Ozzy absolutely hated the music video. The most interesting thing, other than the drama that always happens with every Ozzy album, is actually the track order of the album, the different releases of it. The European version, which include this track listing. Rock and Roll Rebel, instead of Center of Eternity, it's the same song, but called Forever. And Spiders, also known as Spiders in the Night, as the last song. North American version of the album, essentially. Had Bark the Moon as the opening track, which I don't know which I prefer as the opening track, Bark the Moon or Rock and Roll Rebel. They both work. And then you have Slow Down, and the album ends with Waiting for Darkness. Waiting for Darkness works a lot better as the closing track. Should give the 2002 or 3 remix of the album a listen. Sure, they got some guitar solos for some reason. I will say that the guitars are much more beefy in the mix, the keyboards are brought down, and for all its problems, I think I do prefer the remix version. It's especially evident how much awesomer the guitar parts and how they sound are on my favorite song on the album, Now You See It, Now You Don't.
Now you see it, now you don't.
Bob pretty much claims Ozzy was sleeping drunk the whole album, that him and Jakey Lee did everything, but whatever. Bob claims the song is actually about Sharon and how much of a bitch she is, and the lyrics make sense with that. But Ozzy claims it's about railing some chick, and that makes sense too. He goes flaps at the end of the song, which is slang for vagina. There is an infamous song on here called So Tired, which is like an orchestral song. And there's a video of whatever the hell's going on there. There's a shot where the mirror Ozzy's looking at shatters. In real life, a piece of glass in that mirror actually went into Ozzy's throat and cut it up really bad. Most of the fans to this day just bitch and complain about this song, say how terrible it is. And I'm not the biggest fan of ballads, they're always my least favorite songs, but I must say So Tired is so different and so well sung that it is actually quite possibly my second favorite song on the entire album. An album that has killer songs on it all the way through, and this song stands toe-to-toe and even above any of them for me. Some versions, like I said, the opening track, Rock and Roll Rebel, it's talking about how Ozzy got a lot of crap from evangelicals at the time. There was a lot of good promotion from it, but Ozzy on a personal level just didn't like people constantly in public calling him a devil worshiper.
They say I worship the devil. Why don't they open their eyes? I'm just a rock and roll rebel.
But then as the tour was progressing, like things were coming on this stage like from other planets, like, you know, like dead dogs and all kinds of things were coming on stage. And this bat thing landed on this, and I thought it was one of them rubber things, and I picked this thing and I bit into it.
The taste of bats is very salty. Taste of salt.
Tastes like anything else?
Well, yes, but I can't really say that on the air, can I, really?
No.
It was in all the papers. Ozzy bit the head off a bat. He's a vampire. And then there was the time where he went into a record company meeting.
I had bought these 2 doves to throw up in the air when I walked in. And when I looked at these faces, and they were all like... I thought, well... throw the carcass on the table, which they all just went...
He does not worship the devil.
I'm not a Satanist. I don't worship the devil, and it takes me all my time to conjure myself out of bed in the morning.
But it didn't help when some jackass went and claimed that this album inspired him to do what he did, as he went and murdered a mother and her 2 kids in cold blood. Now we have to talk about the writing credits on this album. It infamously credits Ozzy for writing everything, which is completely ridiculous. We all know that.
I was told from the get-go, you write part of the songs, you'll get writing credit, you'll get publishing. I keep asking because I'm getting really close to finishing all my stuff on the record. And finally, once I laid down the final track of my guitar playing, they said, we have the contract for you. And in it, it says specifically, Ozzy Osbourne wrote all the songs. You had nothing to do with any of the writing. You have no claim to publishing. And you cannot say so publicly. And I looked at it. I'm looking at Sharon and said, this is not what you told me before. And she says, no, it isn't. Why do you think I'm going to sign it? She says, because if you don't, we'll give you a plane ticket. You go back home, you stand in line, and you sue us. In the meantime, we have all your tracks. We'll get another guitar player. He'll redo your tracks, and you'll have nothing. Am I going to say, fine, I'm going home, take my tracks off, some other guy will get all the credit for playing guitar, and I still have to try to sue you for the rights? Oh, and Ozzy knew.
I understand why he didn't just sue them and decided, well, I could make money off of touring with this band. Now, the music video for Bark the Moon and the tour, the early parts of it had Carmine Appice, who's the brother of Vinny Appice. Vinny Appice was the drummer for Black Sabbath as well as Dio's solo band, and Carmine tried to get something going with Ozzy, but they just fell apart for some reason. But Tommy Aldridge then came in and finished out the tour. They toured with Motley Crue at the time, which led to a lot of infamous crazy stories because Motley Crue were off the rails, and this is Ozzy at his most coked out, drunken nonsense. You know, he infamously snorted fire ants at a pool with Motley Crue, licked up their piss as well. He was eventually arrested for public intox in 1984.
You know, my wife put me in Betty Ford, and this is a God's honest truth, hoping that would teach me to drink like a gentleman. So I was like a pirate, man. I'd just bar dive and just throw
everything down.
Like, it would have been nice if you had a few cocktails and could stop.
I go in there with a George Armani suit and everything. I got my tie and I'm ready for the go, you know.
Go to Betty Ford and ask her for the cocktail bar.
That's what I did, man.
You thought and when they told you there was...
That's the only way she could get me in the goddamn place. I got pockets full of Valiums, Quaaludes, Coke.
How many did you do?
Oh, I think 7, I think.
7 rehabs.
7 rehabs?
Yeah.
well, eventually it worked.
He tried as hard as he could to get sober. He went to rehab, but it's Ozzy Osbourne we're talking about, and the concept of him being sober is doomed to not last.
Yeah, you do get a lot of things like gold disc, platinum disc, cars, houses, and, you know, then you got things like divorces, management rip-offs, fatigue, drugs, alcohol, you know, hangovers, and you got to go on the next night. You've been up all night burning your bridges, and you got to go, hi guys, it's good to be back on stage again. You know, you're feeling like crap inside, you know.
I was over the top. I mean, everything was over the top. You look at any of the bands, it's like glam for days, you know.
Now, at this time in 1985, they had the All-Star Lineup Festival of Live Aid, a charity event where several bands had reunited to disastrous performances in some cases. And Black Sabbath was actually a huge success. Despite having obvious onstage tension, they absolutely obliterated everyone else. But with many people begging Black Sabbath to reunite, it was at this point that Ozzy actually said no. In fact, he said hell no because he was way bigger at this point than Sabbath ever was, and he'd be essentially taking a pay cut, which goes to show how high Ozzy had climbed at this time, that he was now looking down on the people that were keeping him under their boot. Bob was originally in the writing sessions with this album and wrote all of it with Jake, but then he butted heads with Ozzy again, so he was out of the picture.
I said, Ozzy, if you're unhappy with parts of the songs or you want to start making changes or you got second thoughts, you know, maybe you should have come to rehearsals with the rest of us and worked on them. But he didn't like that. And then a bit later we went out for something to eat and he said something that pissed me off and I called him an idiot. They were getting on with it and then Ozzy phoned me and he said, can you write the lyrics for the album? I'd already co-written the music with Jake. So I said, all right. So it was just a buyout sort of thing.
And for the first time did not play on an Ozzy Osbourne album despite writing on it. Originally wasn't given credits, but that was fixed as usual. But they brought in Phil Soussan to play bass on the album and tour with them. And they brought in Randy Castillo to play drums. Now this album is considered a sellout album. It's glam Ozzy, as if any chick would like Ozzy's fat ass anyways. Sure, it's not exactly the heaviest Ozzy album, but people really do bitch and complain about this album for pretty much no reason. Sure, the keyboards are still on the album, but they're much quieter.
In fact, the first mix of the record, I didn't even hear it, but Ozzy heard it, and he hated it. He said we're not a pop band, there's way too many keyboards, and he told Nevison that I had to be in to remix the record.
The only thing that's even remotely a power ballad is maybe Shot in the Dark, but even that's not a power ballad. It's just more like a poppy metal song, which is probably the best song on the album anyways. Phil Soussan was actually the writer of the song and was originally not credited, then sued the hell out of the Osbournes and actually won. Then when Randy Castillo died a couple years down the line, at his funeral, Phil Soussan was praying in full view of everyone. Sharon walked up to him and kicked him right in front of the casket and everything like a dumb bitch. Everything pretty much rocks on it. There's anthems, heavy killer metal songs too, which no one talks about because dude, this is glam. But listen to these heavy riffs on here. It opens with a killer metal song. Sure, it's kind of melodic in this chorus, but the riff absolutely slays on this song. Ultimate Sin, Lightning Strikes has awesome riffs in it. Secret Loser is a must-have song that has an amazing guitar solo as well, but it is metal without question. If you doubt that, you are a moron. You need to learn what metal is. Ozzy is pretty much the best member on the entire album. His melodies are amazing. They're all very dark despite everyone calling this album soft. then why are Ozzy's vocal melodies the darkest they've ever been? Ron Nevison, the producer, and Ozzy absolutely hated each other and butted heads, and there's a reason why this is Ozzy's least favorite album. This is the Cold War era, and Ozzy tackles it on 2 songs in the album, or Bob Daisley, whoever you believe, with the songs Thank God for the Bomb, which is classic. Some people think it's too goofy with the keyboards and him saying nuke ya, nuke ya. And then arguably the best song on the entire album, what was originally supposed to be the title track, Killer of Giants. Absolutely amazing. The epic song off the album, very comparable to Revelation, Mother Earth, Diary of a Madman. I love the keyboard parts on there and the atmosphere of it. It really does have this feeling of like nuclear war starting.
These nuclear weapons, you know. That is the ultimate thing, because I don't know about Ozzy Osbourne being crazy. Don't you think these lunatics are crazier, building these bombs to blow us all? I watched the news, and this news commentator goes, oh, great news. They've decided to cut the arms, they've agreed on a certain amount of nuclear weapons, from 600 to 400. I thought, big deal, man. Oh, it's all right with having a war tomorrow. I don't have 400 bombs on me, you know. You only need one.
Now this album really tries to capitalize on the video promotion thing. There's music videos for Ultimate Sin where Ozzy's like some sort of oil executive and some chick's like chasing him and he throws her in a pool. And then there was the Lightning Strikes music video, which is really odd, where Ozzy's King Kong, but the effects look terrible. I don't even know why that was picked as a single. I would have literally picked every other song in the album to be a music video, especially Fool Like You. It's a really catchy melodic song. The intro kind of sounds like Black Magic Woman by Santana. The other song that had the big music video was obviously Shot in the Dark, classic MTV music video with them playing live with the chicks in the car. There was even the Pro Shot live video of the Ultimate Ozzy. Unfortunately, there was another falling out with member, that being Jakey Lee.
Randy Castillo, the drummer, told me afterwards, he said that Phil was in Ozzy's ear day in and day out. The biggest single Ozzy's ever had was Shot in the Dark, which Phil wrote. And he said, we don't need Jake. I can be the main songwriter.
Now, Phil denies this and says he has no idea what Jake's talking about, but it didn't matter because not only was Jake fired, Phil was quickly fired too. But then on the guitar front, we have the badass Zakk Wylde, who was unknown at the time, and boy was he different. This is before he turned into swamp-ass Daryl. He actually was kind of a hair metal looking guy. He loves to deny this and act like he's a biker badass that's drunk off his ass with a big beard. But no, he had his poofy teased hair. Now, Ozzy was pretty disillusioned with The Ultimate Sin. It was his least favorite album, and Sharon was pushing them for more of a commercial direction. It was the best selling, but it was more so appealing towards the Radio Rock Arena rock crowd, and Ozzy just really was down for making a down and dirty, heavy metal, aggressive album.
I'm clean for once, isn't that nice? Have you guys,
Is it always like this, or is this an exception?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, come on! Come on!
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the last album, The Ultimate Sin, was kind of got a bit light at parts. But this new album's going to be real hardcore heavy metal, you know.
No Rest for the Wicked is probably Ozzy's most underrated album, and to me, one of the best easily. There's not a single soft moment in the whole thing except for maybe the verses of Fire in the Sky, but even that has like the heaviest riffs on the album on it. And the catchy singles off the album, which didn't really chart as much because they're so damn heavy, have Ozzy's heaviest riffs of all time on them. Now, Zakk Wylde obviously had big shoes to fill in this album, not only Jakey Lee, but obviously Randy Rhoads. And it didn't make it any easier that at this time they put out the Ozzy tribute to Randy Rhoads live album, which was a live album of them playing with Randy before he died. And it's one of the greatest live albums of all time. Randy somehow even managed to make Black Sabbath songs sound better than they originally were, but he still became an absolute guitar icon. And despite what me and many people will complain about with his style and the constant pinch harmonic abuse, Zakk and this album are extremely ahead of the curve because that iconic sound that Pantera and Dimebag Darrell seem to get credit for, the fusion of southern rock and super aggressive heavy metal, and the constant pinch harmonic spam, are very much all over this album. So yeah, for all the people that say Zakk Wylde is a Dimebag ripoff, weirdly enough, Dimebag wasn't even close to that style at this point. It took him several years to start doing that. So, if anything, he ripped off Zakk. Randy plays on Ultimate Sin, but it doesn't feel like Randy Castillo because we know Randy Castillo, that down and dirty kind of bluesy metal. He really brings it on this album. Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath actually came in and did bass on the tour. Bob Daisley plays on the album and records with them again, as well as wrote a bunch of the songs and lyrics and everything. We have to talk about the best song on the album, Bloodbath in Paradise. The intro is infamous for having an intentional backmasked message of Ozzy saying, "Your mother sells Waltz and Hall." And what makes the song even more interesting is the subject matter. My favorite comedian of all time and his cult of followers, Charles Manson. And this song's called Bloodbath in Paradise because the Manson family, which is this cult, were known for going into a bunch of Hollywood homes in the hills and murdering a bunch of celebrities, including Sharon Tate. Now, even at this point, after Ozzy was trying to get away from the satanic accusations, he was, of course, making fun of him with the intro of Bloodbath in Paradise. He made a song called Miracle Man, which is the opening track in the album, another one of my favorite Ozzy songs. This song's about Jimmy Swaggart, who was a televangelist that was pretty relentless against Ozzy. He was, of course, caught with a prostitute, and Ozzy just loved it. He loved it. The whole lyrics of the song are just taking a massive dump on his head.
Ozzy always tells this story how they're filming this video and somebody had the idea to bring all these pigs in and they're filming. They hit the first note, the pigs all over the floor. It was a miracle, man.
Then you have Tattoo Dancer, which is a fast, ripping, killer heavy metal song about strippers. And I love the part towards the end where Ozzy goes, "Tattoo Dancer, dance for me, bitch." Although this album is heavy and killer, there is a lot of goofy, fun moments on it, so if you're just perturbed and have a stick up your ass, you're probably going to struggle to get into this one. This album just slays for 8 tracks or 9 tracks if you have Hero as the last track in a row, and it's just murder all the way through. And speaking of murder, at this time, Ozzy tried to murder Sharon.
He said they made a decision that I had to die, and I'm like, they got up from the sofa and just dived on me and started to choke me.
You're probably wondering what the hell my favorite Ozzy album is because I keep saying one of the best, every single album, but it is really true. All 5 of the first 5 have been my favorite album at one time or another, and it's impossible to figure out which one I really do like the most. To me, they're all 10 out of 10, so throw a damn dart. Now, the past couple albums were extremely successful and they were riding a commercial wave, but something happened with this album. He was trying really hard to appeal directly to those kids who had already left by this point and didn't care. And then they just chased away all of the hard rock and arena rock fans that didn't really want to hear crazy babies and breaking all the rules and all these heavy songs. The sales were not nearly as good as the past couple albums, and the tours were not doing as well. Panic ensued, bring back both sides of the fan base and try to ride the line of let's do really commercially appealing stuff, but still have a dirty, heavy edge to it.
I'd love someone to be in Ozzy's head for a day. You would run down my ass in like 4 seconds. You'd find the nearest escape route. You'd you'd take a laxative. Get me out of here, because I'm mad.
So No More Tears is the album that cemented Ozzy's solo career as being successful till the end of time. And now, as many of you know, if you had a massive hit album in the early 90s, then you're pretty much guaranteed endless success till the end of days, even if the fans hate your album. This album was a good fusion of commercial rock at the time and Ozzy's brand of heavy metal together, and sold damn near as well as Blizzard of Oz, and even references the song Crazy Train with one of the most killer songs in the album, Desire. starting with this album, they started to bring in a lot of outside songwriters beyond just the band members. Lemmy from Motorhead actually came in and co-wrote quite a few songs on here. I Don't Want to Change the World, Desire. Hellraiser was actually kind of interesting because that's a really good song, the Ozzy version, but Lemmy actually went and redid the whole thing in Motorhead. The most infamous of these songs being Mama I'm Coming Home, which was a huge commercial rock ballad. So although Bob Daisley actually does play on this album, they did, I think, credit Mike Inez in some versions. I mean, that's to be expected, obviously. It's kind of weird because it doesn't really sound like Bob. It sounds more of an album that fit with Mike's style anyways. But Bob plays in the album. Who knows why he kept coming back for more, but oddly enough, he didn't really write anything. Mike Inez did actually co-wrote the awesome title track, that bass line at the beginning. What a damn good song that is. It's fusing tons of elements of Ozzy. There's bits of Doom. There's some even like classical parts in the middle. The best song in here is probably gonna have to be the mid-tempo anthemic opener known as Mr. Tinker Train. Mr. Tinker Train's obviously a pedophile of sorts. He loves tinkering on little kids' balls. And I gotta say though, if Being Molested is like this song, then Mr. Tinker Train can come run a train on my ass. Unfortunately though, this would be the last of what I'd consider the Ozzy Osbourne band albums, which, I mean, even that's kind of light because ever since the Blizzard of Oz debacle, it's never really been a band, but even so, there was at least somewhat consistent lineups, and the members that were on the album would actually write stuff, but from this point on, there'd be tons of outside songwriters, and it was never going to be the same. Now, Ozzy early on in the tour for No More Tears wanted out of doing albums and tours and stuff. He said he was going to retire, so he did a tour called No More Tours. We all knew that that basically would go nowhere and that it was just a marketing scheme.
This is supposed to be my farewell tour. We'll see.
And I've said in the press that this is the last Ozzy Osbourne album. And when I say that it's the last Ozzy Osbourne album, doesn't mean to say that I'm retiring.
It's my farewell tour, but I'm going to still continue to make records. What else am I going to do? Start sitting at the end of the pier at Santa Monica here fishing? That ain't my vibe, man. I'll throw dynamite in and get it all the fish at one time. One thing I've always tried to do on my albums is put variety. There's a certain amount of variety on this new album.
Ozzy wanted to take a solo album approach despite all these albums pretty much being solo albums. Zakk Wylde is back on guitar. You got Geezer Butler doing the bass this time around, and you got Dean Castronovo on drums. Now Steve Vai was actually originally supposed to play on this album, and he ends up co-writing the song Little Man on here, but something happened between him and Ozzy. It just did not work out. Also, the production on here is pretty terrible. Michael Wagner, who did the production on the last album, did a really good job, and they were gonna have him come back and do the same thing, but the record company actually came in and they said, we don't want that, you know, we want to do our own thing. They got rid of him, which was a stupid idea. And the producer that they did get in, Michael Beinhard, made it sound like a weird, like, grungy album, but even for grunge, it just sounds terrible. And him and Ozzy, once again, hated each other. In fact, Ozzy would even claim that Michael Beinhard would try to play mind games with him, overwork him vocally, blow his voice out, but then go, you seem tired, and then still not use any of the takes and say, go home. Now, the one thing that really sucks about this album is that this direction is a lot softer musically, and the better moments are the softer songs, which pretty much dominate a majority of the album. My favorite being See You on the Other Side, which is a really good ballad co-written by Lemmy once again. All the weakest moments are the heaviest songs, with the lone exception being the opening track and probably the best song on the album, Perry Mason, which is about this TV series and book series of Perry Mason, who was kind of like a detective slash lawyer. everyone was just trying too hard to either recreate Mama I'm Coming Home or trying way too hard to do something different. And then Zakk was kind of giving him problems too. He didn't really do the tour because he was bouncing back and forth if he was going to stay with Ozzy or do the Guns N' Roses thing, because they were asking him to join Guns N' Roses at the time, because Guns N' Roses can't keep a good lineup to save their lives. And then Dean Castronovo and Geezer Butler ended up leaving, and they brought back Randy Castillo and Mike Inez to play on drums and bass. They also brought in Joe Holmes, who was a guitar player of Lizzie Borden in the past, as well as did a little bit with David Lee Roth. And at this time, the Osbournes started the infamous Ozzfest Festival. Iron Maiden was asked to be one of the opening acts at Ozzfest to go on before Ozzy. Now this was when Iron Maiden was in their boom period again, when they brought Bruce Dickinson back into the fold, and they were really gaining a lot of momentum. And it was starting to kind of clash with the Ozzy momentum, as well as Bruce Dickinson's brash personality would start clashing with the Osbournes camp. What Bruce Dickinson did to egg on Sharon to make fun of the show that the family does, which was the Osbournes show, which we'll get into in a bit here, and then proceed to complain that Ozzfest's ticket prices were way too expensive. Like, dude, you're just asking for trouble. So Sharon, Zakk Wylde, and a couple random people that Sharon just pulled out of a hat started chucking eggs at the entire band and pulling the power during their set. What's really funny, though, is when the band walked off stage, Sharon took the microphone to have everyone boo her into oblivion.
The singer, Bruce Dickinson, is a prick! He has disrespected the Ozzfest since the minute he got here.
So after messing around with Sabbath reunions and even putting out a live reunion album and teasing that there was going to be an album, and that once again didn't happen, Ozzy decided to do another solo album and brought in Mike Borden from Faith No More, and then Rob Trujillo was brought in on bass, who was at this time doing good stuff in Suicidal Tendencies and Infectious Grooves, who actually had a really good song with Ozzy in it called Therapy. And of course, they brought back Zakk at the last minute after the album was already written.
The last album, Ozzmosis, I didn't really have a good time making it, so I was a bit reluctant to get back in the studio again, you know. I want to get a producer, but I want it to sound the way I want it to sound, you know, and Michael Beinhorn was somewhat of a dictator in the studio, where Tim Palmer was he was made it so much fun, you know.
So Down to Earth is a much, much stronger effort than Ozzmosis. It's much more rockin'. It's got doom elements, groove elements, industrial elements, of course, bits of commercial rock mixed in there, and a hell of a lot less ballads. Now, most of the songs in here were written by the producer Tim Palmer and, of course, a bunch of random outside songwriters. Unfortunately, Zakk Wylde wasn't able to put any input on here, but they did have the guitar player that did the last tour kind of rehearse and co-write some of these songs. In fact, I really wish Joe Holmes was on here because I prefer his guitar playing to Zakk Wylde, at least at this point. But his co-writes are the best songs in the album, like the super up-tempo rock and That I Never Had. He also co-wrote the really doomy killer ending track, Can You Hear Me? Gets Me Through is a really good song that opens the album. And then the big hit off here was Dreamer, which was kind of more of a symphonic ballad, really similar to So Tired. Everyone hates this one, just like So Tired. But I once again love the song Defend. It's one of the best moments on the album. Both these songs kind of have a Christmas feel to them. Making a better and more Ozzy sounding album ends up paying off because this album did sell a lot better. And then Ozzy had a quad bike accident around this time where he like damn near died and broke several bones. It was really serious. He even had problems with short-term memory after this. And then the most interesting thing that happened at this time was, of course, the Osbournes show. The Osbournes was like a reality TV show based around the Osbournes family. Amy was the only one that wanted nothing to do with it and pretty much appeared in none of the episodes. Ozzy's two stupid kids, Jack and Kelly, are in there, as well as Sharon and Ozzy. I will say though that we can all admit that the Osbourne show was at its core absolutely hilarious.
Hi, darling.
Someone has been in my room and taken my beers away from my room.
I don't think so, darling. Who would do that? Who could possibly do that? Who's the beer thief? You.
They pretty much canceled it eventually because Ozzy just hated it having cameramen around him constantly, making him look like an idiot.
What do you want to do? Everybody went, we want to pull it. Jack was strung out. I was strung out.
Yeah.
Kelly was strung out. Sharon was battling cancer.
Yeah.
And he wanted to get back to the music, and they did. They dropped one hell of a heavy album.
I've been doing that for so many years, singing about environmental issues. So it's not a new thing for me. I mean, it quite makes me smile sometimes when people go, oh, I see you got out the satanic stuff. But there's a lot of people, that I think are very evil people.
Around when this album came out, they had the big hit that they kept trying to shove all over the place, I Don't Want to Stop. But the funny thing is, I remember before this song, I'd either misunderstood my mom telling me this, or she just straight up told me that Ozzy had died from drug overdose a couple years back before I'd ever gotten into Ozzy. I remember seeing it on TV, them playing I Don't Want to Stop. The guy's like, here's Ozzy with this new song off Black Rain, I Don't Want to Stop. And I'm a dumb kid, I'm still watching this. I'm like, that's got to be like an impersonator, or why would they bring in like someone to act like Ozzy? But the more I watch, I'm like, wait a minute, that is Ozzy. What the hell? So my mom came home like, what the, you told me Ozzy's dead. And she's like, no, I didn't. He's alive. So whatever, I guess. Great album, Black Rain. They're mixing in elements of doom even heavier this time around, as well as kind of some industrial stuff. It sounds like if Rob Zombie were to do some sort of like doom thing, as well as having a bit of a hard rock edge. And you could tell Zakk Wylde was more involved because there's like elements of Black Label Society in here. Kevin Churko, the producer, is actually the one that ends up damn near writing the whole album. Now, the lineup was pretty much the same as Down to Earth. However, instead of Rob Trujillo playing bass, and he left to join Metallica, they got this guy named Rob Blasco Nicholson. And something that makes Black Rain super interesting is that it's more of a socially responsible album, I guess you could call it. They had the recyclable album cover that originally came out with it, which that kind of went nowhere because it looked ugly. So they then kept releasing it with the awesome cover of Ozzy with the Black Rain. And all the lyrics are kind of taking more of a political, societal outlook. The most obvious examples are the title track, Black Rain, which is sludgy as hell. And the really weird bass-heavy Almighty Dollar, which is kind of like an epic song on there. I've heard so many people say, well, I hate later Ozzy, but that song Trapdoor at the end of the album is really, really good, and I will admit that this is probably the best damn song on the album, and arguably the best song of all later Ozzy. Now, Sharon was apparently getting worried about Zakk's drinking habits and feeling like it was a bad influence on Ozzy. Zakk was kind of getting off the rails at this point, and Ozzy was trying to stay sober. But Ozzy claims that Zakk was let go from the band because he was afraid of Black Label Society influencing the Ozzy music. Jakey Lee claims that he was actually asked to come back around this time to join the band after Zakk was let go. He then said to Sharon that, I'll do it, but I just want my credits on Bark at the Moon reinstated. And then she pretty much ghosted him. So what could have been, ladies and gentlemen? Damn it, Sharon. But anyways, she brought in Gus G from Firewind to come at the last minute after all the songs were written for the next album, and that kind of sucks. I wanted him to have wrote something. Kevin Churko was brought back as a producer, songwriter, and even drummer.
I haven't fallen out with Zakk. He's a very good. Our relationship goes way beyond music. I just wanted to. He's got his own thing now. He's got his own band, he's got his own career, he doesn't need me anymore.
Now with Scream, Ozzy decided to kind of keep up with the times more than usual, and he pretty much put out a 2010s commercial radio hard rock album. I hate Volbeat. I can't stand Five Finger Wife Punch. I just hate stuff like this. I hate modern hard rock more than Hitler hated the Jews. Some things, even terrible things, can be done correctly. And I hate everything in this realm except for this album. This album has grown on me a lot. Now, the original title for Scream was actually gonna be Soul Sucker, which is, you know, based on the song on the album called Soul Sucker, and everyone laughed that song out of the bar. And they actually say the name of the song with the guitar riff. Vladimir's Mercy is badass. Crucify is one of the best ones on here. Then obviously the half title track, Let Me Hear You Scream. But I gotta say the best moments in this album are these two songs, the awesome I Want More and the thrashy as hell epic song on here, Digging Me Down.
Men and women enslaved, propagating the Messiah conception.
Although this album is trying really hard to appeal to what was commercially viable at the time, this was another commercial decline. That pretty much is the reason, in my opinion, of why there was never a follow-up to Ozzy's solo discography until recently. Because Sharon probably just wised up and said, well, making albums is not really monetarily a good idea anymore. Then there was the God Bless Ozzy Osbourne movie, which you guys should check out. It's really, really good, heartwarming, and funny. Jack Osbourne was pretty much behind the making of that movie. And then they did another Sabbath reunion, but this time they were focusing almost all of their eggs into this basket. They were actually going to make an album. They did one, and they even did like an EP and stuff, and then they focused on ending Sabbath officially with the End Tour, and Ozzy started to have a bunch of huge health scares, constantly being in the hospital in critical condition.
I had a bad fall. I had to have surgery on my neck, which screwed all my nerves in. And I found out that I have
Parkin 2, which is a form of Parkinson's.
I broke my neck in January. I had pneumonia, I had blood clots, I had everything this year.
So you're feeling well?
Usual.
And no one knew what was going to eventually happen to Ozzy, because everyone was just like, well, I guess the time is the time. He's going to kick the bucket finally. But Ozzy is Ozzy. And out of nowhere, Ozzy did a collaboration with rapper Post Malone and Travis Scott for the song called Take What You Want.
Daughter came home and she says to me, a friend of mine was doing a record with a guy called Post Malone. I didn't even know who he was. I said, what kind of a name's Post Malone? And I met him, and to look at, you go, But then when you get to talk to him, he's a great guy.
It was actually a pretty decent hit. It was even performed a couple times as a group, as well as the guitar player and producer of the song actually wanted to collaborate further with Ozzy, Andrew Watt.
The album was a total surprise to me because it came together accidentally, you know. When I was to Andrew Watt's house to sing on a Post Malone track, Andrew said, do you want to sing on this album? I said, yeah. And we wrote a bunch of songs. It was just effortless.
Ordinary Man was done very, very quickly, written and recorded. Despite Ozzy kind of kicking around ideas for years and wanting to make another album, they finally made it happen with Andrew Watt, who was the producer and the main man of the album, the guitar player, main songwriter. The rest of the lineup goes as follows. You got Louis Bell on keyboards, Duff McKagan on bass,
Peter
Chad
Lale
Smith
on
drums,
Kelly
Andy
Osbourne
Slash on guitar, Tom Morello on guitar.
guitar.
Elton John, as well as a bunch of classical musicians, come in for the title track, Ordinary Man, which to me is one of the standouts on the album. It's a very, very good symphonic ballad, much more around the lines of Dreamer, as well as So Tired than, say, something like Mom, I'm Coming Home. And Elton John ends up playing piano and doing some of the vocals on here.
I said to Sharon, does this remind you of an Elton song? She said, not really. I said, well, off then.
I did it all for you. Don't forget me.
Now, although the production is absolutely horrible, the guitars are damn near inaudible and sound bad, and the loudness levels on this album are unbearable. There's still some damn good heavy rockers on here, like Under the Graveyard, which was a single, Straight to Hell, which was a single. A really good song here called Goodbye that gets heavy after some soft parts and has a really good riff in there. But to me, the best song on here is easily the really fast and crazy as hell song that features Post Malone on vocals with Ozzy, called It's a Rage.
It was when I think we were recording Volume 4, and we had a pile of coke, a pile of pot. So I got to see these buttons on the wall. So I go, oh, must be the air conditioning. And in about 5 minutes, 4 or 5 cop cars come screaming down the drive. So me and this roadie grab the big bowl of coke, I just pile of it, and the pot. We go into the bathroom. I'm going, and then I'm gacked. And they got the door goes. They've gone. I'm going.
The album was generally well received by critics, but hated by most Ozzy fans, and still complain about and say it's the worst one. I think this one's pretty good, but it has its problems. It has a lot of soft songs in here again. It sounds terrible. The heavy moments do not sound right. Ozzy just needs a good guitar player and songwriter with him.
Who is patient number 9?
Me, I suppose. The last 4 years have been sheer hell for me. I've been in such a bad health-wise. Plus, I got Parkinson's diagnosis.
Right. Yeah.
But you know, it takes a lot to hold me down.
It's not amazing, but it's definitely a step up from Ordinary Man, even Ozzmosis, mostly because it delivers on the biggest problem that I had with Ordinary Man. Now, only minimally, but it still gives us what we need. Andrew Watt co-writes quite a bit of this as well as produces, but the big missing ingredient that they deliver on big time with is real guitarists. And boys, there are a lot of them, and they give their unique style to the songs that they not only play on, but also write on. Most of the middle of this album has a lot of Zakk Wylde. Unfortunately, it doesn't really feel like Zakk Wylde's style, almost like he just kind of put his guitar on songs already written, and those are kind of the weaker songs of the album. But the album opens with a couple awesome songs that are played by Jeff Beck. Most notably, Jeff plays on the opening title track and epic song, while since we've had one of these, Patient Number 9, which is fantastic. And Eric Clapton was someone that Ozzy always worshipped and always wanted to work with and never had the opportunity to, and finally worked on the song one of those days. And this, as well as many other songs in here, have very contemplative, end of career type lyrics, basically old man songs. But you can tell that Ozzy actually co-writes a lot of the lyrics on these, because Ozzy's lyrical style is very simple but blunt and to the point.
Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck are like mega stars, you know. And I said to Andrew, yeah, I don't think you want to play on my album. And they both did.
But the real magic and best moments on this album is Ozzy reuniting with the man, Tony Iommi, better than most of the later era Sabbath songs. And Taylor Hawkins, the drummer from the Foo Fighters, had actually contributed to a couple songs before his untimely death. Now, yes, it could have been more energetic, and a lot of it feels very Andrew Watt written and corporate, and they could have had more guitar going on this album. And honestly, I kind of wish we saw more Tony Iommi and that the album was a little shorter, being the longest Ozzy album. There's quite a bit of filler in the middle there. Ozzy basically just got all his buddies together and had fun, and that's all we needed, and it was a very acceptable, good album. Now, despite all of Ozzy's problems, he desperately wanted to not only play, but tour again. They tested this idea out where he played a couple songs that were obviously mine, but he looked terrible and they had to prop him up. He couldn't even stand. In fact, he actually had some botched surgeries, especially with his back, that made his condition even worse. So there'd been a lot of on and off rumors swirling that Ozzy was going to tour, and then all of a sudden I kept hearing that Black Sabbath, the original lineup of all things, with Bill Ward would reunite, something we never thought we'd see, considering they had ended it on the wrong note without Bill Ward. Then all of a sudden the day came, this big announcement, and I thought for sure this had to be clickbait and couldn't be real. A huge festival performance of Ozzy with the original Black Sabbath and Ozzy solo and damn near any metal band you could think of. I didn't get tickets in time, but as time went on, a lot of us fans noticed there was a ton of false marketing going on with this show, that a lot of the bands listed to perform that day would only perform a couple songs or only be members of those bands playing in big supergroup performances. And then weeks before the show, there was talks that Ozzy might only be able to perform bits of songs or a couple songs and not a full set of Sabbath or solo. Big surprises were afoot, with Jake E. Lee of all people making up with Ozzy and Sharon and performing some of his best songs. Unfortunately, he did not get to perform with Ozzy solo, who did about a half-hour set, and they had him sitting on a giant throne the entire performance, playing with Zakk Wylde. They should have gotten Jake. And then, of course, the big finale of the night, the half-hour set of real deal Holyfield Black Sabbath. It wasn't perfect, they were very rusty, but it was the true goodbye. But we could tell that Ozzy was struggling and gave it his all, to the point that very shortly after this concert, Ozzy had died.
The main doctor said to him, if you do this show, that's it. You're not going to get through it. He said, I'm doing it. I want to do it, and I'm doing it. And he knew his body was failing him. He was in so much pain.
It would probably kill him.
Yeah.
But he decided,
I'm doing it.
what a way to go.
Yeah. He was so happy, Piers, afterwards. And he kept looking at the papers and he goes to me, I never knew so many people like me. But that was the way he was. I mean, he knew he was famous, but not to the amount that people loved him.
Now, for all of our problems with Sharon, it cannot be denied that she truly did love Ozzy, because this destroyed her to this day. She has not been the same person. And you gotta give her credit where it's due. She did really save Ozzy's life, and she seems like she has nothing without him nowadays. It's really, truly sad to see. But if you were that close to Ozzy, the most fun and hilarious person to ever walk this earth, and helped create our favorite genre of music, you'd be destroyed too. He was the one person I said I would be truly devastated if they died in music. And the day he did, I didn't feel anything, and not in a negative way. I actually felt closure in a weird way, because of all people on this earth, he went out as a legend and the most perfect way humanly possible. He died a happy man, and we will all die happy because of him.
So many people think that I'm just, like a madman. I'm not a madman. I'm a very determined man. I have a lot of beliefs that are strong. I have a lot of disbeliefs that are also strong, but I'm still Ozzy, and I still love everyone.
Subscribe to these stupid mids. No!